Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We have a fascinating stack of reports today, everything from heavy macroeconomic data from the IMF to some very specific industry analysis on senior living.
It's a lot.
It is. But we are going to start somewhere a little different. We're tackling a subject that is, usually wrapped in sentimentality, but today we're stripping that away to look at the structural machinery underneath. We're looking at the silver economy.
It's a massive topic, and frankly, that term silver economy usually makes people think of what? Retirement homes and bingo nights.
Exactly.
But looking at these sources, the IMF, the World Health Organization, all this data from Ankura and Waypoint converts, that perception is just wildly outdated. It's dangerous, actually, for businesses to think that way.
Absolutely. But before we get into the SEO mechanics and the bankruptcy filings, which we will get to, you had a concept from the reading that really set the stage for this whole discussion.
I did. It's this idea of silent knowledge. It really stopped me in my tracks. There's a saying, it's often attributed to West African tradition, that when an older adult passes away without sharing their stories, their wisdom, it's not just a personal loss.
Right.
It's the equivalent of a library burning down.
A library burning down. Wow. That is a visceral image.
It is. And for our deep dive today, I don't want to just leave it as some, poetic thought. I want us to treat it like an asset class. When that library burns, we're losing valuable economic, social, cultural capital. The whole mission here is really to figure out how we keep those libraries open.
And accessible.
And functioning, even as the physical building, the body might be weathering a bit.
And to pivot immediately to the strategist side of things, we have to look at the weather report for those buildings because the climate is changing dramatically. The urgency here isn't just moral, it's mathematical.
Yeah.
We've got the IMF World Economic Outlook here, and it drops a statistic that just frames everything we are about to discuss.
This is the demographic earthquake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The average age of the world's population is projected to increase by 11 years between 2020 and the end of the century.
11 years.
11 years. Now, that might sound abstract to you listening, but in demographic terms, that isn't a shift. That's a complete rewriting of the script. It changes the workforce, consumption. It fundamentally breaks the current healthcare models we rely on.
It creates a world where the standard life path we've all been taught, school, work, retire, decline, it just doesn't fit the math anymore.
Precisely. So our goal today is to explore how we move from what the World Health Organization calls a deficit-based medical model, basically treating aging like a disease to be managed.
Or cured.
Or cured, right, to a capabilities-based framework. And here's the curveball. We are going to look at how digital tools, specifically search engine optimization, are the actual bridge between those two worlds.
SEO and the meaning of life.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's unpack this. Segment 1, the new old age. I mean, if you're picturing a stereotypical senior citizen right now, the data says you're probably wrong.
We have this phrase, 70 is the new 50, which, it usually sounds like something you'd see on a cheesy birthday card.
Yeah, usually printed in glitter.
Exactly. But the IMF report actually backs this up with hard data. They aren't just talking about people living longer. They're talking about cognitive age.
This is maybe the most surprising data point for me. We just assume that as we get chronologically older, our brains follow this, set path of decline. But the report shows a divergence.
The specific stat was this. A person who was 70 years old in 2022 had, on average, the same cognitive ability as a 53-year-old did back in the year 2000.
Just think about that for a second. In just over 2 decades, we've effectively gained nearly 20 years of cognitive youth.
So what is that? Better nutrition? Healthcare?
Better nutrition, better healthcare, less exposure to environmental toxins. It all just compounds.
And the economic implications are huge. The report mentions these cognitive improvements are associated with a 20 percentage point increase in labor market engagement and a 30% rise in labor earnings.
So people aren't just sitting around. They're working, consulting, starting second or third careers.
Yeah.
Which lines up perfectly with the sociological data we have from the Global Strategic Report. They define this group as the authentic senior.
Authentic senior. Okay, break that down for us.
Well, for a long time, marketing to seniors was very beige, It was all about safety or fear or anti-aging. But the data shows that women aged 50 plus, in particular, feel they've finally grown into their authentic selves.
Okay.
They're done with the imposter syndrome of their 30s, done with the grinding ambition of their 40s. They are just comfortable in their own skin.
So they aren't trying to be young. They are trying to be them.
Exactly. The report calls it a creative renaissance. They're pursuing hobbies for joy, not obligation. The sources mention readership spikes in magazines like Birds and Blooms or Cook's Country. These are not passive consumers sitting in front of a TV.
No, they're engaged, active, vital.
Right.
So the takeaway here is that we aren't just living longer, we are living better. But, and there is always a but in these reports, the market is just failing to keep up with this vitality.
It's a classic mismatch. You have this vibrant, capable population of new, old people, and a marketplace that is still, for the most part, designed for the old people of 30 years ago.
Which leads us perfectly into our second segment, the search for care. Because, eventually biology does win. Even the most authentic senior will eventually need support. And this is where the story shifts from the senior to their family.
And specifically to the search.
Yes, this is where the human element just crashes right into the digital wall. The strategist in me was fascinated by the data from Waypoint converts on digital marketing in this space. There's this huge gap in what we call intent.
Okay, walk us through the funnel.
So you have informational intent, that's the early stage.
Yeah.
Someone typing in senior living near me, or maybe signs it's time for assisted living. They're just browsing, gathering data.
They're doing their homework.
Right, they're worried about the future, but it's not urgent yet.
Yeah.
But then you have transactional intent. This is high stakes. This is memory care admission requirements or cost calculator.
These searches aren't happening because someone is just curious. They're happening because something broke.
A fall, a diagnosis, a stove linked on.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the industry knows this desperation. That is why the benchmark for cost per lead, that's CPL, how much a facility pays, just to get a name and a phone number, it's approximately $431.
$431 just for a lead, not even a contract.
Just for a lead. And the conversion rates, the number of those leads that actually move in, are low, around 23%. That is incredibly inefficient. It shows a system that's really struggling to connect the right solution to the right person at the right time.
But just think about the person behind that search query. Who is typing help for aging parents at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday?
It's not usually the senior themselves.
No, it's the adult child. Specifically, that demographic, ages 45 to 65. We see this in the data. They are likely at work, they're stressed, they might be managing their own kids, and then suddenly they are in crisis mode.
That is a really important point. They are not shopping for a vacation. They are solving a crisis.
Exactly. And that's why the LinkedIn data was so surprising to me. I mean, you don't typically think of LinkedIn as a place to market senior care. It's for jobs.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're trying to reach a 50-year-old executive who is secretly panicking about her parents while sitting in a board meeting, LinkedIn is exactly where she is.
That is a brilliant insight. You are meeting the decision maker where they are professional, but you're addressing a deeply personal problem. It's contextual targeting at its finest.
Right.
And speaking of context, we have to talk about voice search.
Alexa, find senior living near me.
Exactly. The sources highlight that seniors and families are shifting to conversational search. They aren't typing in complex search strings, they're just asking questions. Where is the nearest memory care? Who can help with home nursing?
It sounds subtle, but that changes how the internet works, doesn't it?
Completely. It means the technical layer of the internet, things like local citations, near me, dominance. It all becomes critical. If a facility's website is just a pretty brochure, Alexa can't read it. The data needs to be structured, what we call schema markup, so the AI understands the context. If you aren't optimized for voice, you are effectively invisible to the modern family.
It's interesting because it forces the technology to become more human. You have to write content that answers a question the way a friend would, not the way a corporation would.
So we have the new old age, and we have the search for care. But I want to zoom out and look at the trajectory of aging itself. Segment 3, visualizing the trajectory. The WHO report has this chart figure 5, and I think it's crucial we try to visualize this for you.
Right. I want everyone listening to imagine a graph of a human life. Time is on the bottom axis, capacity is on the side. Now, usually we picture a single line that goes up, peaks, and then just slides downward.
The classic bell curve.
The classic bell curve. But the WHO report says that's way too simple. They break the older population into 3 distinct subpopulations. First, you have high and stable capacity. That's our 70 is the new 50 crowd. They're holding steady, staying high on that graph. Second, you have decreasing capacity. They're starting to experience that slide.
And the third.
And third, substantial loss of capacity. Those are the folks needing significant care.
But here is the critical distinction the report makes, and this was the aha moment for me.
Yeah.
The difference between intrinsic capacity and functional ability.
This is the core of the new framework. Intrinsic capacity is what your body and mind can do on their own. It's your raw hardware. Can your knees bend? Can your heart pump efficiently?
Okay.
Functional ability is what you can actually achieve in the world.
Give us the example from the source, because I think it nails this perfectly.
Sure. Take an older person with severe osteoarthritis. Their intrinsic capacity might be low, their joints height, they can't walk fast. In a strictly medical model, they're just seen as disabled or in decline.
Right.
But if you change the environment, if they have a mobility scooter, if the grocery store has a ramp, if they have accessible transport, their functional ability to do their own shopping remains high.
So the gap between what the body can do and what the person can do is bridged by the environment.
Exactly. The goal isn't just curing the osteoarthritis. I mean, that would be nice. The goal is creating an age-friendly environment that keeps that functional ability line high, even if the intrinsic capacity line starts to dip.
That is a profound shift in thinking. It moves the responsibility from the individual's body to the collective environment. But, and we have to be real here, creating that environment costs money. And the current market for senior care is volatile.
To put it mildly, it's a bit of a chaotic landscape right now.
Segment 4, the industry reality. We're looking at the Ancora report now, and it shows bankruptcy filings in senior living reached a 2-year high in early 2025. We saw major operators like Pacifica Senior Living filing Chapter 7.
And let's be clear, Chapter 7 is liquidation. That isn't we're restructuring our debt. That is, we're selling the furniture and closing the doors.
Right, and the report describes what it calls a bifurcated market. Regional banks are getting scared, they're limiting their exposure, so you have these well-capitalized giants doing okay, and then everyone else is just struggling to survive.
It creates so much anxiety for families. If you move your mom into a place, you want to know it will be there in 5 years. You don't want to worry about an eviction notice because the operator went under.
But while the buildings are struggling, the home health care market is just exploding. It's projected to reach $644 billion by 2034.
This brings us right back to aging in place. That definitive healthcare data cited that 88% of seniors prefer to age in their own homes.
88%. That is a landslide.
It is, but I always wonder, is it a preference because they love their house, or is it a necessity because the institutional options are either too expensive or going bankrupt?
It's likely a mix. But staying home requires that age-friendly environment we just talked about. You can't age in place if the place isn't equipped for it. And this is where AgeTech comes in.
All right.
The sources project this market to hit $30 billion by 2026.
And we are not just talking about those old I've fallen and I can't get up buttons.
No, we're talking about sophisticated interventions. The reports highlight remote patient monitoring, or RPM. This is tracking vitals, oxygen levels, blood pressure, all from the bedroom to prevent hospital readmissions.
Which is great for the physical body. It addresses that intrinsic capacity. But what about the isolation? What about the library burning down because there's no one there to hear the stories?
That is where social robotics enters the chat. Have you seen EleQ?
The little robot head that kind of moves and looks at you?
Yes. It is designed specifically to alleviate loneliness. It talks to you, it engages you, it reminds you to take your meds, but it also tells jokes or suggests trivia.
I have to admit, part of me initially finds that a little dystopian, replacing human connection with a machine.
I think a lot of people feel that way. Yeah, but the adoption rates are climbing. AI usage among the 50-plus demographic doubled to 30% between 2024 and 2025. And you have to ask yourself, for a senior living alone, whose kids are working those 50-hour weeks we talked about, is a robot better than silence?
That is the question. And if the robot bridges the gap, if it keeps them engaged and cognitively active, then it's contributing to that functional ability. It's part of the environment.
And from a strategist perspective, we might not have choice. The labor shortage is real. We simply do not have enough humans to care for the number of older adults coming down the pike. Technology has to do some of the heavy lifting.
It does, but it works best when it facilitates connection, not just replaces it.
So let's pull all these threads together. Conclusion time. From a strategy perspective, the silver economy is a permanent structural shift. This is not a wave that is going to crash and recede. This is the new ocean level.
Right, we aren't going back to the demographics of 1990.
The winners in this space, whether it's home health, senior living, or tech, are going to be the ones who use data to bridge that gap. We need a seamless continuum between I'm living at home with a smart robot and I need full-time memory care. Right now, that transition is bumpy, expensive, and incredibly stressful.
And if I can offer a final takeaway, I want to circle back to that idea of SEO and content marketing we talked about earlier.
Go for it.
We usually think of SEO as this cold, algorithmic thing, bots crawling websites, keywords, meta tag, and it all feels very mechanical.
Yeah.
But in the context of the silver economy, SEO is actually the modern way we connect generations.
How so?
When a facility or a home care agency optimizes their content to answer specific questions, when they write a compassionate, clear article about how to talk to dad about giving up the keys, or when they ensure their location data is correct so a panicked daughter can find respite care in under 30 seconds.
They aren't just feeding an algorithm.
No, they are effectively holding the hand of that stressed-out caregiver we talked about. They're guiding her through the maze. In a world where families are spread out and time is so scarce, the search result is the first act of care.
That is a beautiful way to put it. We're building a digital infrastructure to support the human one.
Exactly. The data shows us we are living longer and smarter. The challenge now is to build a world, both digital and physical, that honors that authentic senior. We have to ensure that the silent knowledge we started with doesn't just disappear when the body fades. It has to stay accessible.
We have to keep the library open.
We do.
That is all the time we have for today's deep dive. We hope this gave you a new perspective on what it means to age and the economics and search terms driving it.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.